My name is Marian Jones, and today I'm going to teach you how to make this crochet car organizer. Today I'll be using Caron Cake from Yarnspirations. This is a number 4 worsted weight, and it's in the color pistachio. I'm using a H-hook, which is a 5mm, and I'm going to start by chaining to the length of 24 inches. On the second row, I'm going to turn and single crochet down the back hump of each chain. If you're not familiar with this technique, I have a whole section about it on my beginner crochet tutorial here on my YouTube. The third row and all the rest of the rows are continuing single crochets into each single crochet stitch below, going through the front and the back loop. I will continue doing the single crochets until the whole piece is 12 inches wide and 24 inches long. This yarn is a self-striping yarn, but I didn't like how big the sections were, so I'm going to cut the yarn and adjust how big the stripes are. I'm going to roll the other yarn into balls and set it aside for the pockets. Instead of having my color changes at the edge of the project, I'm going to hide it under the bottom pocket. You'll see the colors starting to change all in one row across the width of the pattern. The technique I use to join my yarns together is called the weaver's knot. I place the left over the right and then wind clockwise over my fingers and then take the right under the left loop and pull it tight. Other joining techniques are also fine. You could do a magic join or a Russian join. From here on, I'm going to continue doing the same thing, single crocheting into each stitch and keeping in mind to hide the color changes and joins across the same area so that when the item is finished, it will not be visible. Now that the dimensions are 12 by 24 inches, I'm going to start working down the edge of this and do single crochets in every other row. This edge is going to form the top of the pocket at the bottom of the organizer, and skipping every other row to do the single crochet is going to help give this a little bit more elasticity and tighten it up so that it can hold whatever's in the pocket without bowing out, getting stretched, and holding everything secure. Next up, I'm going to flip this over and we're going to connect the sides to form the pocket. I'll be using single crochets and connecting 22 single crochets on the front and the back. On the final stitch, I'm going to slip stitch, chain 1, and cut here, and then we'll reconnect on the other side. On the other side, I'm going to start at the bottom and slip stitch into the front and back of the 22nd stitches, and then single crochet up to the top of the pocket. On the final stitch, I'm going to slip stitch to the top side and then cut my yarn and weave this end in to the inside. Now that we have the bottom pocket formed, we can start making the smaller pockets that will go on the flat part. You can make your pockets any size you'd like. I went with chain 15 and then single crochet back into the back bump all the way down, and then continuing single crochets just like we did the rest of it. This pocket is going to be 11 rows tall by 15 stitches wide, and I'm going to make 3 more pockets to go along, kind of spacing them out to see how they can lay. And it's good to keep in mind that the stitches are in opposite directions, so when we attach the horizontal stitches of the pocket to the vertical of the base, it's going to stretch it out a little bit. So if you make them too wide, then you're not going to have enough space to stitch them on. To attach the pockets, I'm going to be doing a technique that is called top stitching. So it is basically a slip stitch going through the pocket and the base and following the corresponding holes each stitch and each row of the base and the pocket. And I'm holding the yarn in the back and then putting the slip on the front of this one. But as you can see to the right, I did it the opposite way just to kind of give it different texture, and that braided chain look is on the back of it. You could also just use a needle and yarn to sew the pockets on if you don't feel confident in this technique. Stitching across the bottom can get a little tricky, so it's good to double check and make sure that you're still going in a straight line across the back. And this means having to flip it back and forth and make sure you're going into the right hole. On the final stitch, I'm going to pull it up, cut the yarn, and then pull it to the back with a smaller hook and weave in the loose ends. In areas where I have two strands that need to be weaved in, whatever, I will do them in opposite directions where they're kind of crisscrossing on each other, and this just really secures them so there's no chance of them coming undone. On areas like this where there's only one piece of yarn, I like to spiral it around, so just going from one side and pulling the yarn through the stitches that we had used to attach the pocket to the base. At this point, I just have the one pocket left. This pocket ended up being about 8 rows tall. I hid the chain on the back of this one just to give it a little different design and switch up the way that it looked. I wanted this to have lots of different textures and really show the uniqueness of crochet. Whenever I'm weaving into a chain, I do like to go from one side to the other just so it's not making it too bulky, as opposed to the single and spiraling it around the back of the stitch. Next up, it is time to measure our dowel and fabric. I am cutting a 14 by 3 inch piece of fabric to use as a case for the dowel. I'm going to leave 1.5 inches on either end of this and sew between it to create a tube. And then I will use my dowel to turn this inside out. And then in the area that I left unsewn, I'm going to insert 4 pieces of macrame cord, 48 inches each, and sew them into the casing. At this point, I'm going to secure it down and use the square knot method of macrame to do the strap that will go around the headrest. If you're not familiar with how to do this, I will have a link down in the description where you can learn how to do the square knot. The sewn portion and the macrame portion could be substituted with crochet if you do not have a sewing machine or you don't know how to do macrame. You could crochet a tube and then crochet the strap as well. I really recommend using a dowel though. It really helps keep the shape of the organizer. Here is my finished piece. I decided to add a quilted lining to the back, but this part is not necessary or could be substituted with some other piece of fabric if you did want to do it but do not have a sewing machine. And then around the edge, I just hand sewed it to the crochet part just to give it some stability so it will not stretch whenever things are added into the bag and are weighing it down. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. I hope this tutorial has been helpful for you, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below.